Israel has accused the French president, Emmanuel Macron, of, quote, a crusade against the Jewish state. Well, this comes as Macron has levied harsh criticism against Israel, even suggesting sanctions for its humanitarian aid policies in Gaza. Well, Phillip Dolitsky, strategic advisor for the Philos Project, joins us now. So, Phillip, what's the actual reality on the ground of the humanitarian aid in Gaza?
Thanks for having me on. The reality on the ground is that just this week, millions of meals were successfully delivered to the people of Gaza. Israel is currently running two parallel efforts to bring humanitarian aid to Gaza. Both itself driving trucks, 900 some trucks have been brought into Gaza just this week, and then the Gaza Humanitarian Fund, which has delivered 2.1 million meals just this week. So I'm not so sure what President Macron is really on about. The situation on the ground continues to be that Israel finds every way to deliver aid to Gaza, and with this new effort with GHF to bypass Hamas. And so it's quite amazing what Israel's doing, going above and beyond. So I must admit that President Macron has it a bit wrong.
So if you look at different Twitter handles of the UN and different outlets, they're basically saying, in a nutshell, Israel's obstructing them. They're not allowing the flow to go in. Israel is creating this enormous hunger problem that Israel, or what's one I just saw, that Gaza is the hungriest place in the world. That was the quote. So are they just lying? What's actually happening here?
Yeah, I think it's another instance of the UN being upset that they're not involved in some project across the world. I think the UN has proven to be corrupt when it comes to providing aid to Gaza, and by allowing just aid to flow freely with the UN, it always seems to be co-opted by Hamas. And so I think the fact that they've no longer been invited to join in the efforts has bother them quite a bit. And we should see that it's bypassing Hamas, which the UN aid never did.
So let me read you a tweet from Israel's foreign ministry. Quote, President Macron's crusade against the Jewish state continues. The facts do not interest Macron. There is no humanitarian blockade. This is a blatant lie. Israel is currently facilitating the entry of aid to Gaza through two parallel efforts. In the first effort, nearly 900 aid trucks have already entered Gaza from Israel this week. This is going beyond a war of words. This is escalating to some real intense tension between France and Israel. He also went on to say, or not the foreign ministry, but Macron also said, quote, the creation of a Palestinian state is, quote, a moral duty and a political necessity. Interesting timing. What do you think about that statement from Macron?
Yeah, I think it's completely misguided. I think it ignores the storied history of that idea, but especially now in the aftermath of October 7th, to reward the Palestinians with a state only signals that violence is the way forward in the Middle East and is the way forward for the Palestinian people. And I think that is totally the wrong message to send. I think it's misguided, and I think it's frankly dangerous to continue along that line of thinking.
So if you look at some certain articles, like I was looking at one from Al Jazeera right before we got on, and obviously people have their issues with Al Jazeera, but you see pictures of emaciated children. They look like Holocaust survivors. They look really hungry. So I think a lot of people are confused. They see these images. They see people, clamoring for food to put in their pots. All these images coming out of Gaza. And yet Israel is saying these things like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. It's happening. And so I think for a lot of folks, it's like, what's really happening, and more along the lines, where can we get accurate information? Because if you go on this article, it looks like Israel is intentionally starving the people of Gaza. And then you look at this video and it's like, oh, the people of Gaza are saying, thank you, President Trump. Thank you. I even saw a video of someone actually thanking the IDF, which was kind of crazy. So where do we find accurate information? How do we know what's true?
I mean, this is the million-dollar question in the age of social media, when so many competing voices are there trying to grasp at our attention. I think in terms of pictures and videos, it's certainly been the case over the past 600 and some days that a lot of the pictures claiming to be out of Gaza are in fact from other conflicts over the world. And, the media just distorts the narrative by showing pictures from elsewhere. I think it's important to see on the ground the reality with media personalities who are there and who have proven track records of being neutral and of trying to present as objective a reality as possible. It's also, when we look at some of the numbers, the CIA World Factbook showed that the population in Gaza increased since the start of the war, which if you're deliberately creating a famine and trying to starve a population, I don't know how those two things square with one another. I don't think the reality shows that.
I had last week the Israel Consul General Israel Bahar on, and he said, quote, along these lines, so it's not exact, but along these lines, that not a single person, not one single person has died from starvation in Gaza. And I think, if you were to talk to people on college campus protests, they would say, oh, that number is, somewhere in the thousands. And he's like, no, that actually hasn't even happened once. So there's just a lot of confusion going on. But this is a Christian network, and people, including myself, have a heart for the civilians of Gaza. So what is the compassionate thing to do? What is the right stance to have? How should we be, supporting the Jewish state, but also supporting the Gaza civilians? There's been lots of videos coming out recently of Palestinians clamoring against Hamas. People are done with Hamas in a lot of ways inside Gaza. And so maybe last question, Philip, how do we hold both things in tension, right? To see the validity of Israel's right to self-defense and also wanting the best for Gaza civilians?
Yeah, it's a great question. One that, as a military strategist myself with an area of interest in military ethics, something that bothers me too. And I think it's important to understand where the conflict is really stemming from. And it stems from Hamas, an apocalyptic terrorist organization which continues to abuse its own civilians, has withheld aid from them, and continues to use them as pawns in this awful war. War is always hell. There is sadly no way to change that. But the sooner it's over, the sooner hell ends as well. And the one organization that has it within its ability to end this war is Hamas. It can let the remaining hostages go. It can put down its arms and say that we're no longer going to pose an apocalyptic threat to the Jewish people in Israel. And we can build a better future for the people in Gaza. But right now, it is Hamas, and I think only Hamas, that is proving to be the source for the humanitarian disaster there.
Well, Philip, I appreciate your time, my friend.
Thanks for having me.